Donald Trump has issued yet another economic threat, this time targeting Brics nations with a massive 150% tariff on their exports if they dare to discuss an alternative to the US dollar. What's his claim? Brics is trying to destroy the dollar by working on an independent financial system that could bypass US control. And what's Trump's response? Economic coercion. He wants to punish any Brics country that even mentions de-dollarization. But the real question is this: if Brics were truly irrelevant, why would Trump need to threaten them with tariffs just to keep them from creating their currency? If the US dollar were so strong, why would Washington be so afraid of Brics moving forward with its financial system? The answer is clear. America is panicking. But can they stop Brics? Let's find out. For nearly a century, the US dollar has been the world's reserve currency, giving Washington tremendous power over global trade and finance. The dominance of the dollar means that countries must hold large reserves of USD, use it to settle international trade, and rely on American-controlled financial systems like SWIFT. This setup has allowed the US government to manipulate global markets, print money at will, and impose crippling sanctions on nations that refuse to follow Washington's orders. However, Brics is working to dismantle this system, and Trump's extreme response proves just how threatened the US is. The petrodollar system is at the heart of US financial dominance. In the 1970s, Washington struck a deal with Saudi Arabia, ensuring that all oil transactions were conducted in dollars. This forced every oil-importing nation to hold reserves of USD, artificially boosting the currency's value. But now, Brics is challenging this setup, and the petrodollar system is beginning to unravel. China and Russia have already abandoned the dollar for bilateral trade, with over 90% of their transactions now conducted in yuan and rubles. India is buying Russian oil in rupees, cutting the dollar out of energy transactions altogether. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia and the UAE have openly discussed selling oil in yuan, signaling that even America's historical energy allies are looking for alternatives. The International Monetary Fund (IMF) has confirmed that the US dollar's dominance is shrinking. Back in 2000, the dollar made up more than 70% of global reserves. By 2023, this had fallen to just 58%, and the decline continues. Meanwhile, China's digital yuan is already being tested for oil trade transactions, proving that an alternative financial system is becoming a reality. If Brics succeeds in launching an alternative global reserve currency, the United States will lose its most powerful tool of global influence. Without the world's reliance on the dollar, Washington can no longer impose sanctions, control capital flows, or manipulate markets. This isn't about fair trade. This is about the US fighting to maintain its grip over a world that is slipping out of its control. Trump knows that if Brics continues its de-dollarization strategy, the dollar's global importance will erode, leading to a financial crisis for Washington. The US economy is built on debt, and that debt is sustained by global demand for the dollar. If Brics nations, and eventually others, start trading in their currencies, the artificial demand for USD will disappear, sending inflation skyrocketing in America and weakening Washington's ability to project power globally. This is why Trump is so afraid of Brics' financial ambitions. The bloc isn't just creating an alternative currency. It is laying the groundwork for a world where the US no longer calls the shots. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Africa's geopolitics, economy, and changing landscape. Let's continue now. Trump has tried to portray himself as a tough leader, claiming that his threats forced Brics to back down. But the reality is far different. Instead of falling apart, Brics has expanded at an unprecedented rate. At the 2023 Brics Summit, 5 new countries, Egypt, Ethiopia, Indonesia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates, were officially welcomed into the bloc. This expansion is one of the largest geopolitical shifts in decades, as more nations turn toward Brics as a counterbalance to Western financial dominance. Meanwhile, Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, and Thailand are actively discussing joining Brics shortly. Trump's weapon of choice, tariffs, has been a failure in the past. In 2018, he imposed massive tariffs on China, believing it would force Beijing to change its trade policies. Instead, China retaliated by cutting agricultural imports from the US, devastating American farmers. Prices for consumer goods skyrocketed, and manufacturing jobs declined due to the rising costs of imported materials. And now, a 150% tariff on Brics nations would cripple American businesses. The US relies heavily on Brics imports, including electronics, rare earth metals, agricultural products, and pharmaceuticals. If these goods are heavily taxed, American companies will be forced to increase prices, leading to higher inflation and a weaker economy. Meanwhile, Brics has plenty of trade alternatives. China can redirect exports to Africa and Latin America. Russia has expanded its energy trade with India and the Middle East, replacing US markets with stronger Brics economic ties. Brazil and South Africa, major exporters of food and natural resources, are strengthening their trade partnerships with China and Europe. Trump's tariff strategy is doomed to fail. Instead of weakening Brics, it will push the bloc to accelerate its plans for economic independence, ensuring that Washington's influence continues to decline. Trump's aggressive trade policies are not only failing to weaken Brics, they are isolating the United States from the global economy. While Brics nations are forging new trade relationships, the US is losing influence even among its allies. China and Russia's bilateral trade reached a record $240 billion in 2023, proving that Western sanctions have failed to isolate Moscow. India is expanding energy purchases from Russia, moving away from the US-dominated oil market. Africa's trade with China reached $282 billion in 2023, showing that African nations are prioritizing partnerships outside of Western influence. Meanwhile, the US is not just isolating itself from Brics, it is also alienating its closest allies. Trump's aggressive tariff policies have backfired, damaging long-standing relationships with Mexico, Canada, and the European Union. By imposing tariffs on Mexican and Canadian imports, Trump has pushed both nations to strengthen trade ties with China and the EU, reducing their reliance on the US market. At the same time, the European Union is actively exploring alternative financial systems. With increasing concerns over US sanctions and the dollar's instability, European nations are considering diversifying trade settlements in currencies like the yuan and euro. By waging trade wars even against allies, Washington is accelerating the decline of the US-led economic order. As more nations seek alternatives, the US is becoming more isolated on the global stage. While Brics is expanding and thriving, the US is becoming more isolated and unreliable. So, what's the future of all this? Brics is no longer just reacting to US economic threats. It is actively building an alternative financial system that could reshape global trade forever. This is not a vague possibility. The foundation for a Brics-led financial revolution is already being put into place. Russia has proposed a gold-backed Brics currency, which could become a direct competitor to the US dollar in international trade. A currency backed by real commodities like gold and natural resources would offer stability, protection against inflation, and a secure alternative to fiat currencies controlled by Western central banks. Unlike the US dollar, which is based on debt and can be printed without limits, a gold-backed Brics currency would maintain real value, making it attractive to nations looking for a stable, long-term store of wealth. China is already leading the charge in digital finance. Its digital yuan is being tested for international oil transactions, proving that the US dollar is no longer the only viable option for global trade. China's digital currency is far ahead of the West in terms of adoption, with countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE exploring its use for oil sales. If major oil producers begin accepting payments in yuan instead of dollars, this could end the petrodollar system, which has kept the US dollar dominant for decades. One thing is clear: the 150% tariffs won't threaten Brics, but will instead make them stronger. Every time Washington attacks Brics financially, the bloc finds ways to reduce its reliance on the US even further. Trump's tariff threats are not a deterrent. They are fuel for Brics to accelerate its economic independence. As Brics expands its financial networks, more countries will join the movement to break away from the US-led economic order. The world is moving toward a multipolar financial system, and the US is running out of ways to stop it. Trump's tariff threats aren't a demonstration of strength. They reveal Washington's desperation. The US is no longer in control of the global economy, and Brics is proving that nations can thrive without relying on the dollar. As more countries move toward de-dollarization, develop independent trade networks, and adopt alternative financial systems, the US grip on global finance is slipping. The era of American economic dominance is ending, and the future belongs to a multipolar world led by Brics. Tariffs won't stop this shift. They will only push Brics nations to accelerate their financial independence. The only question is, how long can the US delay the inevitable? Do you think they can stop Brics? Let us know in the comments section. Will 150% tariffs work? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: African politics, the economy, and increasing power. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.
Tell us what you think in the comment section. Like and share the video, and subscribe so that you don't miss any of our African videos. It's the best way to support us.